Gentrification. We're gonna start over. We're gonna attack Wynwood. Wynwood is a segment of Miami that a lot of people go and visit. And it's changed over the years a lot. Even from the time when I first visited it, it's changed a lot significantly. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. If you have not already, make sure you tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. All right, let's get it.
Now.
And with the construction and reduced foot traffic, you kind of got a perfect storm in Wynwood right now.
The artsy neighborhood is undergoing another renaissance, prompting some concern.
They killed kind of the soul of Wynwood, what it used to be, what made it cool.
Tonight, CBS News Miami explores what's next for Wynwood. Now, walk around Wynwood in Miami, and you're likely to see for sale and for lease signs. Also, a lot of development.
CBS News Miami's Joe Gorcho shows you what's at work and how the city is looking to help businesses who need it.
So unfortunately, my biggest concerns are there are going to be a lot of restaurants closing over the next few months.
Felix Bendersky runs a hospitality brokerage firm in Miami. He's concerned about restaurants and nightclubs struggling to keep their doors open after a rough end to 2023.
September was down 65% as a whole in the restaurant industry. October was down 45%, and November was down 25%, which worries me a lot because I think that over the next couple of months, we're probably going to have 80 to 100 local restaurants closing. Edgewater, Wynwood, downtown, and maybe a little bit north.
Arnaud Magal is the owner of Novella Cafe Social in Wynwood. He helps bus tables and builds relationships with customers. He opened up his doors 2 years ago after moving from Brooklyn to South Florida.
We tweaked the concept in quite a lot since we opened, changing a coffee roaster to adjust the coffee profile to something more local and perhaps more agreeable.
Business flows, but he expects a slower summer in sales. He's ready to adjust.
Yes, I am worried, but not on a level of are we going to shut doors? Not at all. We expect maybe a 20% drop. What it means.
Let me tell you something. A 20% drop is massive.
We're going to shut doors. Not at all. We expect maybe a 20%.
20% drop is huge. And he came from New York. A lot of people were complaining and they say, well, we don't want people over in California and people over from New York coming from Miami and coming to gentrified parts of Miami and South Florida, and then changing it into what it is that they have over in New York. They messing up the money, but then all they doing is just making it more like that place, except for with better weather. Has anybody here ever been over to Wynwood? Has anybody here ever been over to Wynwood? Wynwood is, okay, one of the most famous things that Wynwood is famous for is graffiti and Wynwood walls. So graffiti is kind of like the theme over there. It's kind of supposed to be like edgy, modern meets cultural thing. You know what I'm saying? And if you walk down the street that's most famous over there on Wynwood, you'll see some restaurants. Some of them will be popping. You'll see some stores. You'll see some walkable areas. And then if you go down some of the side streets, you'll see some more clubs and restaurants and stuff like that, right? And the thing about Wynwood is that Wynwood basically used to be the hood, right? And I've learned this from talking to people in Miami and actually experiencing watching the gentrification with my own eyes. When I go to Miami, one of my favorite places to stay, especially if I'm there for any extended period of time, if I'm there for a month, 2 months, 3 months, actually the place that we like to stay the most is Midtown. Midtown is directly next to, or basically across the street from, Wynwood, right? From Midtown, you can walk over to the Design District. You ain't even got to grab a car. We usually get an Airbnb and just stay over in Midtown for like 2 or 3 months. And it's a nice area. It's a really nice area. It's dope. It's right down the street from Biscayne, which leads you straight down into Brickell. And then it gives you a straight shot over into Miami Beach if you want to head over to Miami Beach. But Wynwood is kind of like right across the street. So Midtown is a great place to be because it's a nice area. It's really dope. It got great weather. If you got great views, you can oversee everything. But then also it allows for you to go to all of the different places without always being in the mix 100% of the time. You ain't got the riffraff and the craziness of Miami Beach, but then you have access to everything, and it gives you a sense of normalcy, right? And so when you go over to Wynwood, which you can walk over there from Midtown, it's crazy because if you turn down any of the one streets, and this is kind of changing, like it's kind of happening right before your eyes. If you walk down any particular street, you could literally be in the hood. I mean, you could literally be surrounded by dope fiends and drugs and drug addicts and stuff like that. But it's starting to change. And so now what's happening over in Wynwood is starting to become one of the more culturally significant places that is moving out all of the riffraff, and it's changing the streets, and it's removing some of the edginess, and it's becoming a place where they're building all of the apartments and all of the places and all of the high rises, and it's starting to become a little bit more corporate. And so it's cleaning up the area, but at the same time, it's displacing the culture and the thing that Wynwood is normally known for, right? It's becoming a tourist destination. It's coming a touristy spot. It's already a touristy spot. People go there to take pictures. You see a lot of people, Instagram and influencers and all of that stuff, right? I still like Wynwood. I think that it's a lot of parts over in Wynwood that's dope. But then at the same time, it's becoming a lot more visible. And I think that people that live in Miami or people that are familiar with it, they now are starting to stay away from it because they act like that the soul of a place is leaving. You see what I'm saying? Oh man, all of the tourists are familiar with there, so I'm not going there. Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. And Miami, a lot of Miami is like that. Like you can turn down a street and you can be in the hood. You can straight up be in the hood. So that's my experience as a person that has regularly visited and even lived in Miami for a few months as an outsider, as a visitor. That is my experience of what Wynwood is like. And so when you see this and you see people are talking about it and they saying, well, we're from New York and we opened up a cafe here and it's down 20%. Now you have some additional context as to why people are saying that the culture and the neighborhood itself is changing.
And drop. What it means is that people are going to get less hours.
But walking around, I saw 4 signs on buildings for sale.
See how you see the graffiti and stuff? A lot of times that's the actual artwork that's on the building itself sometimes.
Within a 2-block radius.
The rents are getting higher, the margins are getting lower, and the expenses are getting higher.
And several lots are being built toward the sky around the for sale signs.
That's exactly what it looks like.
We're seeing a rapid amount of growth over the next 3 years, which will bring in a lot of foot traffic and people.
Christina Crespi is the executive director of the Miami Downtown Development Authority. She says the DDA, in part, helps small businesses survive the growth of new office, retail, and living spaces in Miami under its umbrella in Brickell, Downtown, and Edgewater.
And so we've developed grant programs to that effect to help them navigate through this difficult time. Also want to support our local businesses, those that have been here riding this wave out.
In the rising rent pressure, it's tough. And then with the construction and reduced foot traffic, you've kind of got a perfect storm in Wynwood right now.
Gramps owner Adam Gersten has deep ties to Miami, living here his whole life. He says business remains steady, even though uncertain about the future.
Plan moving forward is to not change course and just keep doing what we do.
And that's what one resident we spoke to hopes for as well, despite the boom in development.
I would describe it as raw, colorful, and in your face.
Michelle moved to work in Wynwood a little over a year ago.
So I used to live in San Francisco, and the main part that I love.
How come everybody from the West Coast and from New York, from San Francisco and from New York, how come all of these people are moving into Wynwood? How come all of these people are moving to South Florida? South Florida is going to change. If it hasn't already, it's going to change. Because people in California are going to continue to move out if they can get out. And then they're going to take their money and they're going to want to get the same edgy thing that San Francisco used to be and, what L.A. was coming up. And then they're going to look for it somewhere else, and then they're going to change it into what it is that they came from, and then they're going to ruin it. They're going to ruin it.
About California was the vibrancy and the color, and then the tech industry took over Silicon Valley, and it became very gray and muted, and that's what I would hate to see about Wynwood.
I like the fact that it's a little bit raw, a little bit industrial. It's not finished. I think that you can still be a small operator and set shop here. It's not very commercial.
What do you think the face of Wynwood is going to become years from now?
I think a couple of blocks will still have some flavor. I think the rest of it's going to look like a giant shopping mall. I've had conversations with landlords, and landlords are not planning on any sort of correction. They would rather...
Why would they? They capitalists. They want to make money.
Bring in boring, mediocre investor visa concepts that will pay the rent.
Bandersky fears Wynwood could lose its soul if locally owned restaurants and chefs do not survive development. He tells us over 30 in Miami have already closed for good this year.
Yeah, it's over. Shout out to Wynwood. Whatever it was that it was, it's not going to be that anymore, because profits over everything. And once people start seeing the money, that's what they're going to go into. It's just the facts. That's just the reality of it.